All right. Hi, welcome. My name is Andy Bose. I'm the Director of Eligibility and Data here at School Food Solutions. Thank you so much for joining us for our verification webinar for the 23-24 school year. We're going to dive right in here. This session is being recorded, and the recording will be sent to you tomorrow and to everybody who registered as well. So thank you guys for coming. We'll go ahead and dive in. So just a couple of norms. You're going to be on mute during this webinar. If you do have questions, though, you'll see down at the bottom of your Zoom window a Q&A option. Go ahead and click on that and you can type your questions in. They're only going to be seen by myself and my lovely co-host here, Grace, until we answer them, at which point they will become public. So don't be scared to ask a question. We want to know what's on your mind. Also, feel free to use the webinar chat if you want to give anybody some tips if you've done this before or anything. That's also a fine way to communicate as well. And myself and Grace will be monitoring both the questions and the chat window as best we can while we go through the presentation. Before we dive into the good stuff, I did want to just do a quick poll because I'm curious. So I'm going to launch a quick poll here, wondering if this will be your first time supporting verification or going through this with your school, or if this is something you've done before. So we'll give everybody a chance to take that poll. All right, let's see. Let's share those results. Look at that, 50-50. All right, so we're all in good company here. This will be my first time leading the verification process from the School Food Solution side of things. So we're all in this together. And as you'll see, we're going to take care of the lion's share of the work of this process. We're just hoping to let you know what's going on and get your support throughout it. So awesome. Thank you guys for taking that poll. All right. All right, so let's dive into it. So we're going to start with just what is verification? Why are we doing this? So the USDA mandates that annually schools that participate in the National School Lunch Program confirm the eligibility of certain applications that were approved for free or reduced price meal benefits. So it's the USDA's way of like holding people accountable to putting accurate information on the forms and, you know, making good use of the public monies used to fund this program. Verification is performed only on a small percentage of applications, 3% to be exact. So not every single application on file, not even a very high percentage. So it's just a small sample every year that gets selected. So who gets selected for verification? So as I said, it's a 3% sample of households or applications that were approved for free or reduced benefits. So if they were approved because of the income written on the form, or if they were approved because they provided a benefits case number for SNAP or TANF, for example, or if their application mentioned that one of the children was a foster child. Those are all eligible to go through verification. Not included in verification is anyone whose application was denied. So if their income was too high to qualify for benefits, for example, they're not included in verification. Any students who are directly certified through benefits programs with your state, they are not subject to verification. So even if they also filled out a paper application, that application is kind of secondary to the direct certification, and so they don't have to go through verification. And then any students who are directly certified as foster, homeless, migrant, or runaway, that also would not go through verification. And then lastly, any children enrolled in Head Start or Even Start programs, because all children in those programs are qualified for free meals without needing to be verified. All right. So this is kind of the big thing we want to talk about in this session is what is School Food Solutions going to do for you when it comes to verification, and what are you going to be responsible for at the school food authority or school level? So School Food Solution is going to own this process, okay? We're going to pull the sample of applications according to all the USDA and state regulations. We're going to maintain kind of a snapshot for October 1st and October 31st reporting that's required for verification. We are going to reach out to the families of the selected applications. We're going to track their responses. We're going to send second notifications if families don't respond to the first one. We're going to keep track of all of these points of contact and any notes in a shared location, our verification tracker, so that you know what's going on at all times. And then we will also be responsible for submitting all required reports after the verification period is over to your state agencies. So we're taking on, again, kind of the bulk of the process. What we need from you guys to help this go smoothly is make sure that we have your September direct certification list and any applications that you have received. Make sure that all of that has been submitted to forms@schoolfoodsolutions.org by tomorrow, but today would be great because we want to get all of that processed prior to October 1st, which is when all of the verification stuff starts. And then we will, like I said, share this tracker. We're going to get into that. We ask that you guys take a look at that tracker once it's shared with you and update it if any families should contact you at the school with information. And then also just to be responsive to our calls and questions. We might have trouble reaching certain families. You know your families better than we do. So we really just, we might be reaching out to get a little more information or see if you have better phone numbers or emails for folks. So please be responsive to that if it should come. All right. All right, so let's do a quick overview of the timeline of verification. So as I said before, by tomorrow, at the very latest, make sure we have your September direct certification list and any paper applications. I am certain that all of you guys have been on top of this. We have been asking for it already, but just in case you happen to have anything lying around, please send it through as soon as possible. October 1st, we're going to pull the full a full new student status list for you so that we have an accurate kind of snapshot in time as of October 1st. And we're also going to start pulling that verification sample of applications. So this process will actually take us a couple of days to get through it for all of our partner schools. So that first week of October, oh man, I'm sorry, I forgot to update some of the dates on this. I will verbalize that. I apologize. So the first week of October, we're going to be pulling those verification notifications to the families that are selected. We're going to check the original app that they turned in, make sure that it was processed correctly. And then once everything is good to go, we'll send those notifications out to families via mail and email if we have an email on file. We'll also share those notification letters with you guys along with the verification tracker that has the list of the selected students in your SFA. In the middle of October, after we've given people some time to respond, we're going to start doing second notifications. So for anybody who we haven't heard back from, we're going to send out another round of letters. We're going to start making phone calls and may reach out to you guys to get some assistance. Now, like I said, I forgot to update this date. I'm so sorry for that. It's actually going to be a little bit later. End of October, early November is when we're going to have kind of the final due dates be, and this will vary by school. It'll be in your tracker. But that's going to be the final due date for when families need to turn in documentation. If they don't turn it in by that date, that's when their status will change. And that date will also be listed in that second notification that we send out. And then between November and January, depending on the state, we will finish your verification summary report and submit it to your state agency well before their due date. And we will also submit it to you guys for review before we submit it to the state. All right. Some resources that we're going to send to you after this presentation and with your verification tracker are these two guides called the Verification Success Guide and Verification Acceptable Documentation Guide. We're going to talk about a lot of these things in our training in just a minute, but I wanted to let you know that you'll also be getting these reference documents with your verification packets. So this will tell you exactly what we need you to do and what how the process works. That's the verification success document. And then the verification acceptable documentation is just a list of what kind of documentations family can turn in case a family should come to you with questions. You can refer to that. And again, we're going to get into all of that in much more detail here in just a second. All right, so let's start by diving into the verification tracker. So we're going to make a school or SFA specific Google Sheet for your school. It will have any students whose applications were selected listed. So you'll kind of see there's a place to list the student name and their application number. We're going to put in there how they were originally qualified, so what was on their original application and what their original eligibility category was. And then we're going to keep track of when we send verification notices, when their documents are due back, whether or not we received any documents, and if the documents received or not received resulted in an adjustment of their benefits. So we'll keep track of all of that in this one place. It'll be nicely color coded to kind of let you know where everything stands. And we're also going to keep kind of running notes in here anytime we make a point of contact, anytime we hear from a family, anytime we receive something. This is where you'll find your school specific due date, this document's due date column. And like I said, we're going to be keeping this up to date throughout the process. Now, on this same tracker, there is space for notes from the school as well as parent or family contact information. So we're asking that you periodically log in to check on notes. We'll definitely let you know, as things come to pass. If like people have responded and your verification is over, we're going to send you, the tracker again and let you know that everything is good to go. But as we're going through the process, please feel free to check in as often as you like to this tracker. We're going to be keeping it up to date. If you have better contact or newer contact information for families that are selected, you can paste it in that phone and email column. We ask that you highlight anything you change in those columns in yellow, just so that the next time we get into the tracker, we can see that that's been updated. And then again, notes from the school, you can type what you need there. So if the family calls you or sends something to you, or you have a question, anything like that, you can put that in notes from school. We do ask, though, that you don't alter any other information in the tracker. So don't change any of the color coding or any of the other columns. All right. I'm going to pause there for a second. Any questions about the tracker? Feel free to put in that Q&A box or in the chat. Just wanted to remind you that that's there and we'll be able to answer questions throughout and at the end of the presentation. All right. Once we send you your verification tracker next week, that's the same day that we're going to be mailing the first verification notification letters home to families. This letter is going to be, again, for every school, it may be on a different day next week, but it'll happen at some point next week. And it will provide families with, oh, sorry, somebody just said chat is disabled. I did not know that. Sorry, guys. Please feel free to use the Q&A if you have questions, and I will see if I can figure out how to enable chat. Thank you. All right, so like I said, the verification letter is going to provide families with basically a short explanation saying that they've been selected for verification and what this is, where to send their documents, and we are telling them to send it directly to us. So we're trying to make it as little lift for you guys at the school as possible, so they can scan digital information to forms@schoolfoodsolutions.org. They can fax it to that number listed there. They could mail it hard copy to our PO box. All of that's going to be in the letter that they get. We're also going to send them a list of what types of documents are acceptable to send. So speaking of acceptable documents, this is kind of a quick overview of the idea. The letters, like I said, are going to tell your families to send everything directly to us, but as people are wont to do, they may want to turn stuff into the school instead. If you do receive documentations from a family, we're asking that you check the validity of the documentation, make sure that it see if it matches what is on the reference for acceptable documentation. That way you can let the family know, like, you might need to get something else or not, kind of right away. Scan the documents and email them to forms@schoolfoodsolutions on the same day that you receive them. If possible, use the file naming convention verification, school name, student initials, and please only send one email per family. So if you get documents from multiple families at the same time, please send them as separate emails. We don't want to get any documents mixed up between families. That really helps us keep it organized. Now, depending on the application type that was originally submitted, families must provide either documentation of their household's income sources or documentation of the household, someone in the household being enrolled in one of the qualifying assistance programs. So let's get into that a little bit more. So if they submitted an application with income information, then what we're looking for is 1 full month's worth of recent documentation about their family income. Ideally, this would be 1 month prior to the date they submitted the application or between the application date and the verification date. That acceptable documentation does need to have the name of the household member who's getting the income, the amount of income received, and this is important. It's got to be that gross pre-tax amount. The frequency at which this kind of income is received. It needs to be dated. So it could be a pay stub, for example, or a letter from an employer. And we have an example of one of those in a minute. But a copy of a check without like pay ranges or a pay stub without dates, for example, would be insufficient. If they submitted an application with a case number saying that they, had benefits for SNAP or TANF or some other qualifying program, then we need documentation that proves the enrollment of someone in the household in that program. And it needs to also specify the certification period. So just sending like a SNAP card would be insufficient because it doesn't normally have a date on it. But again, if it's any household member has like a letter saying that they're enrolled in the program, that is acceptable documentation. Now, if one of the selected families stated that they received no income on their application, then they're going to need to provide a letter or a statement explaining how they get their, how they meet their needs of their family and other necessities. So that is also that can be provided in an email or taken notes, like a signed statement. I'll pause there. Any questions about acceptable documentation? We're going to get into the employer letter here in a second, but basically, yeah, if they put income on the form, we need some kind of proof of that income. If they put a case number, we need some kind of proof of enrollment in that program. So an employer letter doesn't have to be anything fancy. This is an example of an employer letter that was accepted, but it does need to kind of have the name of the company or the employer. It needs to say the amount paid and the frequency. So this one is written in Spanish and it says he pays $120 a day, $600 a week. And it's got the name of the person who does the paying. And then if you get a document like this or any documents, please include the name of the school and the name of the student and their grade on the document or attached to the document so that we can keep it straight with the right student. So when it comes to verification, depending on, I know we have folks from kind of all over the country who have different food programs in their state. And so students and families have different, levels of interest in responding to the verification process for obvious and various reasons. So, but our goal is to get 100% response rate if possible for verification. Now, obviously, sometimes families are not going to want to submit this documentation. That's understandable. If the documentation isn't received, it will result in a change of status from free and reduced to paid. And that's going to be the case if they choose not to respond at all. But if you're able to collect a statement in writing, an email or a letter or a fax, anyway, just saying I choose not to participate in verification, or like I don't want to submit my documents, that counts as responding when it comes to the official response rate to verification. So even if you have folks who are hesitant to turn in the documents, we want to at least get them to write a statement saying that they are opting out of participating. The results are going to be the same either way as far as the change in their eligibility status, but the written response is going to help you not kind of get any corrective action from the state, because it'll make your response rate higher. Less than a 70% response rate usually results in some sort of corrective action from the state. So we want to get that response rate as high as possible. And for some of our friends who have a small percentage of their school population who are eligible for free and reduced benefits, your sample size may only be one application or two applications. And so it's really important to try and get a response from that family in some way or another. So after adverse action is what the term, the verification process of what happens if you don't turn in the documentation or your documentation doesn't match what was originally on the application. So if a family doesn't respond or opts out in writing, the student will lose their free or reduced eligibility status and moved to that paid status. Okay, they're going to get a 10-day kind of grace period and a notice letter before the change occurs. That notice letter will also tell them that they can appeal the decision and let them know what to do there. Based on the documentation provided, verification could result in a couple of different things. One, it could be no change in eligibility status. Either the documentation met, whatever documentation they turned in met eligibility at the same level, they're good to go, they continue to be qualified at that same free or reduced level. It could result in a change of status, so they could go from reduced to free or free to reduced if the documentation they turn in meets the eligibility limits for a different benefit level. Now, if they do lose eligibility, moving to paid status, that would happen if the documentation doesn't meet the requirements for free or reduced. A common reason that this happens is if families list their take-home pay or their net income instead of their pre-tax gross income on their original app. When we get the documentation showing that pre-tax gross amount, sometimes that puts them over that threshold for benefits. But the eligibility guidelines are based around that gross income amount. So that can be kind of the most common reason, other than not responding, for somebody losing their benefits. All right. This is the contact information. Again, this is going to be in the notification letters we send to your families, but we wanted you to have access to it as well. This is where families can contact us if they need to turn in documentation or if they have any questions. So they can submit via email to forms@schoolfoodsolutions.org, and they can do that for questions or for documents, either way. They can fax submissions if they want to that 877 number there. They can mail hard copies of submissions to School Food Solutions PO Box. If they have questions, they can also call that 1-800 line. Extension 1 is for verification. There's also a Spanish extension. That's extension 4. So for folks who need help in Spanish, they can call the same number. Excuse me. For schools, if you guys have any questions, you can always email forms@schoolfoodsolutions.org. You can also reach out to me. You can use that same 800 number with extension 1 to contact me. I'll be monitoring those calls. And then this is also my direct cell number. If I'm not able to answer in the moment, please leave me a voicemail or a text message so that I know who to call back. But yeah, this is information for you guys. If you have questions or families are coming to you and you're not sure what to do, don't hesitate to reach out. Always available for questions, and we'll get back to you if we can't answer right away.